week later, and, has the CPC had public hearings on
Yes,
this issue?
we did.
Was there attendance?
There was not a single person.
Not a single person.
Jim was there. No one's called. Honestly, I got my first phone call on this on Friday. I have my first inquiry. I haven't heard anything.
So we have an audience here. Where, can I ask the audience where you got this information?
Was the public hearing before the warrant was mailed?
This.
Yeah,
The public hearing
This is
was-
where people got the information, was
Right.
when the warrant got mailed to their house.
It was before the warrant.
So
was
you
out.
had your public hearing on the article prior to the notification of the town, as far as an article in the warrant that specifically
It was
named the
about
parcels.
3 weeks ago.
But we didn't notify all the butters.
So that,
So they didn't have
oh, no,
notice.
we notify all buddies, gosh,
Well,
$1,000,
the fact
yeah.
is that they didn't get notice.
Right. So once they got noticed, then their interest was piqued.
Well, honestly, the way it reads is it seems to me that, I'm David Wright from 7 Parsons Lane. It seems to me the way it reads is all property owned by the town is now eligible for affordable housing. And it's a blanket statement, and what's to stop it all from being affordable housing or what have you? And then some of the questions are, what are some of the goals of the town? Is it to make money in certain areas, or is it just to, meet the quota of affordable housing
No,
after
actually,
2010?
I think I can explain that. As Heidi alluded to, as a result of the Berry Lincoln Properties project, where there's 406 apartments, all of which qualify for affordable housing, that took the town off the hook associated with 40B. In other words, 40B is blocked as a result of that. Up until the new census, at which time they now count houses again, and you have to have 10% affordable. So there's some number as a result of this census that's going to take place in 2010, and the impact would probably be 2011, where we will then be up against 40Bs. And what the CPC is trying to do is to set up a program where we can be very selective and in advance actually create affordable housing to make our inventory requirements without it being forced down our throat. So that's the intent. It's not like we want to go off and develop affordable housing in every lot that the town owns. The idea is to be able to be in a position to pick and choose where the necessary affordable housing is going to be placed. Unfortunately, when we put this article in last year, it got turned down by the Attorney General because it's specific, we have to list every parcel. Now, the questions you've raised about, well, maybe you shouldn't put every parcel in there. Maybe you should have spent more time looking at the specifics of what really makes sense. I guess I can't argue with that particular comment, but that's the intent. The intent is not to just stick affordable housing everywhere. The idea is to control it so that we don't end up in a situation we have been in over the past 4 or 5 years.
Just clarification, you made a good point. You mean when forced down your throats is because we didn't have property and contractors tried for something else?
No. What it means is that if you don't have 10% affordable housing in your community, then a developer can acquire a lot of land somewhere and can waive all of the zoning requirements and put in high density.
Well, that's essentially, I lived on 53 Central, and I believe that's what happened on 62 Central.
Yes.
And also on Pilgrim Road, right up the street. There's 2
So now I
40Bs
moved
on
to
that.
Parsonage, and we just had a 36 unit
There you go.
build right behind me. Now, the question is it coming to the end of the street?
No. But the purpose of this is to control that so that we, theoretically, we have some control over it, over where it goes and how it goes. That's the theory of this. Okay, it's not the other way around. It's to be able to say that we have some control over what goes in, where it goes in, rather than being imposed upon us, as you've seen in 2 occasions.
Right.
So that's
Mr. O'Leary and then the gentleman.
Just to follow up on the chairman's comments, we've added about over 500 units, including the 404 over here, 406 over here. Over the last 5 years or so, there've been about 500 units added on for quote affordable housing credit, between the two neighborhoods you lived in, 3 different projects. I mean, there was a group of us that spent hundreds and hundreds of hours negotiating with these developers who just came in, bought a parcel of land where it was zoned for 1 acre zoning, 2 acre zoning, whatever it was at the time, or even quarter acre, and all of a sudden they're proposing 36 units, 50 units, 14 units, all over the place. We had very little say other than we entered into negotiations with them and mitigated as best we could what was going to happen. But we've added 500 units. Let's just say there were no other development in town. There has been other development. When the census is done, there's going to be another 500 units that have been picked up on our census. We need 50 more units of affordable housing right off the bat that we don't have. So we're behind the 8 ball by 50 units just by virtue of what we've already accomplished in meeting the 10% goal. So in 2010, when they do the census, and it actually goes into effect in 2012, if we don't have something in place where we can prove to the state satisfaction that we have an affordable housing overlay district with some sites that would be acceptable, deemed acceptable, and specified by the community as affordable housing, then the developers can more easily come in and buy the lot next door and put 8 units on there instead of 1. And what the town, the CPC's been trying to do now is formulate an overlay district so that it's kind of a stopgap measure to allow the town a little more time to plan appropriately rather than stomping out the brush fires and reacting to developers' proposals, and maybe come up with our own plan to meet those needs, which is what the state wants the communities to do anyway. So we've been a little behind the times. This particular project out here on 62 actually bailed us out for a little while with minimal amount of impact on neighborhoods. You're certainly aware as to what occurred on Central Street in 2 different areas, and also up behind Parsonage Lane on Mount Vernon Street. So, and there's been other ones down on 62, and well, there's a whole host of them that have taken place in the last 5 years. So it's a necessary thing that we should be doing anyway. The only thing that we would have control over, obviously, is town-owned land. I had some discussions with Heidi today, but I mean, I don't necessarily agree with putting every parcel of town-owned land on a map. And again, the questions that I raised was, how does this affect this board's opportunity to sell parcels of town-owned land to abutters, whether it be for septic systems or to just enhance their property? Does that, if it's included in this overlay district, does that automatically allow those new owners, to build affordable housing on it? I'm not sure. I don't have the answer, and I would be very concerned as a board member in limiting our ability to do what we deem in the best interest of the town, whether it be for public health issues in relation to allowing people to build a septic system to meet the needs, which is what we do in a lot of areas of town with small parcels of town-owned land, actually help alleviate those concerns. So that I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, key unanswered questions as to whether or not we're placing an unnecessary restriction on ourselves as to what happens. Can we actually, what we do many times when we sell to an abutter is we require them to make it part of their parcel, make 2 parcels 1. How does that affect the adjacent parcel? What if they buy it from us, we put the restriction on, they thumb their nose at us, which we've had done before too, and they won in court. And they say, you know what, I've changed my mind, I bought it for whatever it is, a small amount of money, but I decided now I'm going to develop an affordable housing project in my backyard, in effect the neighborhood. I don't know, we don't have the answer to those questions yet, and I think before we proceed to town meeting, we need to get those answers. And I think Heidi's going to try and get those answers this week. But again, as far as how it was chosen, I asked Heidi, how were these actually chosen? Basically, they just ran through and plugged everything on the map, and I don't necessarily do that either.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, my name is Mike Kirby. I live at 4 Parsonage Lane. I think my question is similar to what Mr. O'Leary just addressed, even though maybe a little bit nuanced. I'd like to understand most specifically what the approval process is for any of those parcels to be used for non-affordable purposes, because I'm hearing the intent is that they're not all going to be used for affordable purposes, so presumably they may at some point be used for non-affordable housing purposes, and what would that process be? I mean, obviously, and I should note that I'm a member of the Town Finance Committee, and I know we have some financial challenges that face the town as well, and presumably there may be some, town-owned land is one of our more significant assets, so I'd be concerned if we're essentially restricting the entire inventory of our town assets for this purpose if they can't then somehow be used for non-affordable purposes.
Well, that's the question
Right.
that Steve has asked Heidi.
Understood.
Bill.
Is there a reason, Heidi, why we couldn't put this off till April and answer some of these questions rather than do it now?
No,
It's a week to
no,
go.
that's fine.
I'd
I
be in
asked her the
favor
same
of pushing
question.
this off, you know, recommending we pass it over and then bring it up in April. I think there's some questions that the butters have and the questions that we have. This is a serious question that you've raised, Steve. It's a very serious question. If we can't sell this property, we want to.
So again, as far as the value of it, you probably enhance the value of these things if it actually is buildable for affordable purposes, because the density is going to be more substantial than what would be allowed under the regular zoning. But, I asked Heidi the same question, can we postpone it, what effect is it? And again, what we're doing is, this is kind of a stopgap measure in anticipation of 2010 census, and actually 2012 when it really kicks in. So I don't see any sense of urgency moving forward at this particular point. And I think the other major concern, as was pointed out, was adequate notification to the direct abutters. I understand you had a public hearing as you should have required to do so, but it was prior to adequate notification as to which parcels were actually going to be affected.
The woman in the rear, and then Mr. Delano.
My name is Mary Ann Delano McGovern. I live on 8 Parsonage Lane. And you may also want to get the Conservation Land Committee involved in that parcel of lot there, because I believe that there definitely are lady slippers that's protected by the state.
On Parsonage Lane?
Yes. So that would be considered a restriction. And there may be some other type of wildlife that live there as well that's protected by the state.
Turkeys.
Steve made a point about if the land was sold to an abutter, how do you know what the abutter is ultimately going to do with that land? My question is, when the land is sold, can it be rezoned? Can it be removed from the overlay district so that, one piece at a time, or you can't do that?
We don't have the answer to that
That's
question.
what we're
Oh,
saying.
that's the other
part of the
question.
question. That's part of
Okay.
the question.
Okay,
We
thank you.
don't have that answer.
Hi, good evening. My name's Kathy Stewart. I live at 13 Riverside Drive. I apologize, I have a really bad cold, but I thought it was important to be here this evening. I would agree with the other lady from Parsonage Lane that you please, there's only, I counted maybe 100, 105 properties listed. Send the list down to, the Conservation Commission, and they can tell you pretty quickly what's buildable and what's not. Those, particularly the one on 5, and I'm pretty sure 45 is, floods very, very, very badly. There's a lot of wildlife that is in there. There's a lot of flooding that happens every single year. There are all kinds of plants that are just indigenous to wetlands, and I don't think that it really can be successfully built. In order to be successfully built, you'd have to fill it. And if you allow to fill in there, then everybody else on that street, including myself, is going to say, I want to fill too, because I've lost well over 3 feet of my land into the river in the last 5 years, and I can't do anything with it. If you build another property at 5 Riverside Drive, my land is even going to flood more badly than it does now. My neighbor that lives next door to me, next to 5 Riverside Drive, the other season when it flooded, it went up to the joist in her kitchen floor from her basement. You put a piece of building on that property next to her, she's not going to have a house anymore. So I would really, really try to encourage you to please do as much research as you can, and just try to keep some of the abutters informed as much as you can. All right, thank you.
I think everyone's had an opportunity they wanted to speak. Before we do Mr. O'Leary.
I move that we recommend pass over. Again, I'll recommend to the CPC that they pass over.
Motion made by Mr. O'Leary, and second by Mr. Harris. I heard you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Nice to see all of you.
Will there be anyone in the board that's going to speak on that?
I think so. Mr. Harris. Mr. O'Leary, I guess.
Michael's doing that?
No, Steve. I was just bringing up procedures. Rescind Article 10 of the April 2007 town meeting. That was the oh yes.
This came from the discussion at the April town meeting. A lot of
cap being placed on the